is coming.
The king has returned from the broken ruins of Babylon. This is the end of days. Hello everybody. Welcome to End of Days Radio, Alpha Edition with Daniel. Yes, that's me. That's me, the notorious DAN, the All-American Man. I like guitars, fast cars, and comic books. What kind of things do you like? This is a very special edition of End of Days Radio. We have some very interesting things planned, or I have some interesting things planned, I should say, since this is a little bit more singular now, as many of you know. But tonight, we will be joined by a very big fan of End of Days Radio. We are going to be joined by Todd. Many of you guys know him as a caller to End of Days Radio. You know him for calling in and being kind of goofy, calling in drunk, drinking whiskey, and being kind of a goofy guy. But we're gonna see we're gonna hear a different side of Todd tonight. We're going to hear a completely different side from him. We are going to actually finally give him a chance to tell the story that he has been dying to tell pretty much since he started coming on this show. He has talked about stuff, but he's never really been able to tell his story. Usually on this show we would have somebody like a Jordan Maxwell or somebody like that. But we're going to kind of get away from that a little bit. We're still going to have the big names. We're going to have the big authors, all the classic people. We're going to still talk to the David Icks and the people like that. But we're going to focus, I would say, about 30 to 50% more on just regular people that have had an experience, who have had a story, who have something to share. Basically, the show is going to become much more fan-orientated and much more interactive. There is going to be it's going to be less interactive in some ways. One thing that we're not going to do anymore, we're not going to take calls like at the start of the show. If we ask a guest a question, or if I ask them a question, I'm not going to interrupt them in order to take a call. It's not that I don't like the calls or anything like that. It was just being handled very badly before. It wasn't being handled in a professional and polite manner. It was really rude, sloppy, very passive aggressive, just messy, and it really screwed up the flow of the show. And it hurt my reputation too, because I don't want to have a reputation for being an asshole or for bringing these guests on the show and treating them like crap or being unprofessional or immature or anything like that. I don't want anything like that. So we're not going to handle things like that. There's still going to be calls. This will still be a very call-driven program. Might take some calls tonight. We'll see what happens. But we're not going to I'm not going to rely on the calls to fill up airtime. I don't think that that's necessary. There's plenty of things that we can talk about. There's plenty of things going on out there. There's Pizzagate. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that. But this whole thing of people calling in at random times and just loading up the phone lines with 3 to 5 people, that never really worked. If somebody calls in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely focus on that person. So we're going to hear what they have to say instead of having people on the line and, whoever's talking over people gets to talk. That's over. This isn't going to be a show where people talk over each other. There's nothing more rude or disrespectful, pushy, weird, and annoyingly controlling than a person that talks over others. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to share the talk space evenly. I'll talk, and then it's your turn, and then it's my turn, and then it's your turn. That's how you have a conversation. It's simple. it's something you learn to do in high school. And if you don't know how to do that by the time you're an adult, you have serious problems. So we're going to make sure that anybody that calls into this show, whether you're a very loud, pushy person or you're meek, you're very mousy, we're going to make sure you have a chance to say what you want to say. And if you have something interesting to say, of course, you're welcome to come on this show. This is a completely free forum for you to express whatever happened to you or whatever you believe to the world. If you've had an alien encounter, if you've been abducted, if you've been interested in magic all of your life, if you have something to say about technology, whatever, as long as it's interesting, I'll give you a chance. I mean, why not, right? It's just a little show in the corner of the internet. It's not something that should be taken that seriously, in my opinion. It's just about having fun. It's not about making money. It's not about becoming famous or anything like that. It's just about having fun. And even more importantly, it's about getting this information out there. I would say since about, I'm going to say 2012, I feel like people around the world have really kind of, I wouldn't say they've woken up. I wouldn't say that people have woken up, but there's been a little bit of an awakening started, in my opinion. I think that nowadays you have access to so much more information than you ever would have had before. Before, you would have to go to some very obscure places to obtain this information. And now all you have to do is pull out your phone and go to YouTube and search for UFOs or aliens or something like that. Now, because the control grid, because the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, because they can't control the flow of information anymore, now they do something different. Now they flood the internet with disinfo. And what do I mean by disinfo? So disinfo is information that is meant to mislead, distract. It's basically meant to throw truth seekers off course and confuse them so much that they just throw out everything. They throw out the baby with the bathwater. And there are a lot of sources of disinformation out there. In fact, so many of the top people in the conspiracy world have been accused of being disinformation agents, including myself. That's happened to me before. And I don't know why, other than the person making this accusation was probably a little bit on the paranoid side. But I'm definitely not a disinformation agent. I don't get paid to be weird on the internet. It's just something that I enjoy. So I'm definitely not one of those people. I do suspect that there are people like that out there. We had a gentleman named Norio Hayakawa that came on here before, and he talked about the famous Paul Benowitz case. And that is one case where I can pretty much confirm 100% that there were disinformation agents involved. You know, just to kind of go into that story a little bit, this guy, Paul Benowitz, he was curious about these underground bases in Dulce, New Mexico, and there were people that were actually assigned to feed him information in order to confuse him, in order to have him spread more false information. And eventually Paul Benowitz wound up in a mental asylum. That's very similar to Gary the Mad Martian. We've had him on quite a few times, and he's told us how he was supposedly put into a mental institution by Richard C. Hoagland. You know, you really have to ask yourself, is that one of those situations? Was somebody messing with Gary, trying to get him to kind of flip his lid or something like that? The guy's come on this show many, many times, and he's ranted and he's raved about things and, you know, just yelled and yelled and yelled. As I stated the week before last, I don't really enjoy that. I never really liked having Gary come on and just shout at us. It just never worked for me. I mean, there was times when it was funny. There was times when I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good radio. But for the most part, he just seemed like he was, I don't know. How do you explain what's going on with him? He's very angry. He talks about Richard C. Hoagland all the time. He calls all these different shows. You know, he's really into coming on podcasts and calling into shows and trying to get himself on air and stuff. And I have to wonder what his motivations are. I'm not going to try to guess what those are. It could be anything from it's his ego, he just enjoys it, it's like a gimmicky thing, and he sucks up the attention. It could be that. It could be that he really believes these things that he talks about. He believes that he's John Connor or Luke Skywalker and Richard C. Hoagland is Darth Vader. It might be that he actually believes this stuff. I don't know. And I do think that there is something really weird going on with the Hoagland stuff and NASA and all of that and the Masonic elements, but I'm not so sure about some of the more extreme things that Gary talks about. But the bottom line is that nobody wants to just hear the same things being shouted over and over. Eventually we want to finish. So like in pro wrestling, you're building up until you finally have a match on pay-per-view, and that's like the big payoff for all the build-up that you've been doing. But with Gary, I feel like it's build up, and the payoff, there either is no payoff or it's too confusing for me to understand. So that's one of my major gripes. I mean, if he wants to come on here and he wants to treat me with respect and actually let me ask him questions and have a dialogue with me, that's fine. He's more than welcome to do that. But am I going to put up with the immaturity, the name calling, and stuff like that? The second you start acting like that, buddy, that's the second when I stop believing anything that you have to say. Because if you're going to act like a lunatic or act like a little kid, I'm not going to listen to what you have to. I'm not going to believe anything you have to say, because I'm going to assume that you are, you're not altogether there, or your motivations are different. But if you want to actually come on here and either talk to me or debate me in a sane manner, of course you can. Anybody can. I'm not gonna say anybody can't come on here if they have something they really need to share or they have something to say. But no, I'm not going to put up with disrespect. I'm not going to put up with that. If you wanna come on somebody's show and treat them disrespectfully, then you're just a piece of shit. You're just using them for their time. That's the honest truth. You're just trying to get your big fat voice out there, and you just want people to hear you, and that's all it's about. If it's really about the information, you don't act that way. Bottom line, period. Because you got to ask certain questions about that. Why is it that Gary is doing these hit and run attacks? Like, why would he call up like Hoagland or call up Coast and start rambling on? I mean, you don't have to do it that way. If you really have something to say, these shows should be inviting you on. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like there's always somebody super important on Coast to Coast. So if they have time to do open lines and talk to anybody, including people talking about frivolous nonsense, then why wouldn't they have time for Gary the Mad Martian? Unless he's being rude and he's talking over people and he's shouting in their faces. In that case, well, all I have to say is shut up. Shut up. You know how Sylvester used to say in those old Looney Tune cartoons? Shut up. That's all I can say to that. Either come at me with a sane, logical, calm, concise argument, or shut up, right? And once again, I have nothing against Gary. It's just he has a history of coming on this show and being disrespectful. If he wants to make that up to me, he's more than welcome. But if he's just gonna slam me and just act like an ass, then yeah, I'm not gonna spend any time on him. In fact, let's go ahead and move on. So, next thing I wanted to talk about is this Pizzagate thing. It's so weird. I'm not gonna bullshit you guys and act like I know all about it. It's my I just actually learned about this, so bear with me that I'm not caught up. I know I'm supposed to be at the cutting edge of all this, but I only have so much time, and sometimes I get to this stuff late. But anyways, it's my understanding that in the WikiLeaks releases that there were actually these code words being used to describe child molestation and a ring of pedophiles and people like Anthony Weiner and Hillary Clinton and people like that are supposedly involved. And I am hesitant to talk too much about this because there's not always fire where there's smoke. There isn't. And sometimes you can grab onto something and later it turns out to not be true, and that'll hurt your credibility. So anyways, to backtrack a little bit, I guess in these emails they were using some pizza place and using pizza-related verbiage, words that had to do with pizza, to describe these supposed pedophile rings. And this whole pedophile ring thing, first of all, it's just nasty. I mean, come on, they're molesting kids. Like, it's unbelievable. I would say that most of the time that I have been interested in this subject matter, I never really believed that much in the pedophile rings because it just sounded so outlandish. Like really, all of these politicians and powerful people are spending their time molesting kids. Why would they do that? They couldn't all be pedophiles, et cetera, et cetera. But then I kept looking, right? So I keep looking and I keep reading, and I eventually get to the point that I start to believe it a little bit. I find out about the police finding underground tunnels and things of that nature. These cover-ups that have happened. I mean, just look at the Catholics. That's all been exposed now, but there was a time when people were accusing the Catholics, and I'd be apt to believe that, for the most part, people did not believe the accusers. I mean, why would a priest molest anybody, right? However, it all turned out to be true. So we know that the Catholic Church is full of pedophiles, but that's not the only organization or the only institution that has this problem. There's a lot of this stuff coming to light in England and Britain especially. There's a guy named Jimmy Savile, something like that. I hope I'm not getting his name wrong because this is a very bad accusation, but a lot of this stuff has been coming out in England, and it's in the newspaper all the time. Every so often you see in the papers or the news, oh, so-and-so, a big politician, has been exposed for pedophilia, blah, blah, blah. So there's some definite truth to this stuff. And I'm not sure how deep it goes. I don't know who is involved or why. I don't really understand this fully. I'm starting to, but there's mind control involved, and the reason why they will molest kids or abuse them is it serves a dual purpose. If you can get politicians and high-ranking officials to engage in sexual relations with an underage person, well, you can blackmail them pretty much for the rest of their lives. So you have control over them right there. The other thing is it's to traumatize the children. And if you traumatize children enough, then you can actually cause their minds, their psychology to split. You give them a nervous breakdown, and their consciousness begins to scatter. And from there, you can reform this scattered consciousness into compartments. And you can assign controls to these apartments using hypnosis. And you can trigger certain compartments to do certain things. And then when you're done with it, you can put them away. That's how a lot of assassinations and things of that nature happen. You have these children. A lot of them are probably linked to elite families, and then they're abused. These controls are implanted. They're surrounded by handlers their whole lives. And when they need them to do something, whether that be go out and spread disinfo or kill somebody or whatever, that's what they do. I know it sounds crazy. I know it's unbelievable. I totally get that. I was there. I was at the same place that many of you guys are. You're just getting into this stuff, and it sounds insane. It sounds like gobbledygook. You don't even want to waste your time on it because it seems like you would have to be either super paranoid or desperate for attention, or you want to feel special. I'd say that's the number one accusation I hear about people that are into paranormal or into magic or weird things. Like, you're trying to feel special. You want to attain knowledge so you feel like you have a one-up on everybody else. And there's probably some truth to that. But so what? If a motivation like that can lead you to all of this truth, then who cares? Because by the time you actually get there, It's not going to be about that anymore. I guarantee it. You just cannot be around all of this stuff and not have it affect you. You're going to go one way or the other. You're going to completely shut it out or you're going to embrace it. And you really shouldn't do either. What you really should do is go through this stuff with a fine comb, take what you feel is true and throw the rest away. That's what you should do. And that's what I try to do. It's called discernment. And it's not an easy task because the more you get into this weird stuff, the weirder and weirder it gets, and the harder it is to discern what is real and what's not. Look at the Montauk Project. Holy crap. Where do you even start with that? I would hope that whatever was going on there, I hope that it's not true. And that's another thing that involves children being kidnapped, abused, and stuff like that. Stuart Swerdlow, Preston Nichols, these guys were coming out with this stuff. I'm pretty sure they were doing it even before David Icke. I'm pretty sure they were among the first people that were talking about this really out there stuff. You know, the reptilians and all of that. I'm pretty sure they were talking about reptilians before Icke, but don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. There's another researcher called Branton, and he was writing about reptilians very early as well. So don't think all this stuff came from David Icke. He did not invent the reptilian things. He did not. He put it on the map. He brought it to the forefront of society and consciousness, but he did not come up with it. That's not his thing. Oh, I see our guest, Todd. He's actually calling me right now. Todd, I actually need you to go ahead and call the number listed on the website. I need you to call that number because that's actually the number that I'm going to talk to you through. If you call my phone, I can't really talk to you like on the radio. I mean, I can. I know I can work it out somehow, but that's not how we're doing it. So go ahead and call that main number, buddy, and we'll talk to you. Let's see, what time is it? So everybody, just go ahead and sit tight for a second. I'm going to take a short break and just hang out for a bit. I'm going to get a hold of Todd so we're not, sitting there doing nothing. So go ahead and do what you need to do. Run up to the refrigerator, use the bathroom. I'm going to go use the bathroom. That's my main reason for taking a break. I do apologize, but I need to use the bathroom. So I'll be back in about 10 minutes. All right, guys. Hello? Hello, Todd? Can you hear me? I'm not getting any audio from you.
Hello?
There you are.
Hello?
There you are.
How are you?
Doing good. Are you ready to go on air?
I am so good.
All right, I'm gonna go. If you're all ready.
Yeah, we're off air right now for 2 minutes, right, Daniel?
Yeah. Anything you want to say to me before we go live?
Well, just to get my picture.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped up. Been building the energy. I'm surrounded by books.
Okay, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and then I'll introduce you.
Please do.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, going. Okay. Going. Okay. Here we are. We are back. This is End of Days Radio. And we are joined by none other than, you may know him as a caller to our show from the past. His name is Todd. His full name is Todd Miller. And he is joining us to talk about a whole plethora of topics tonight. The cool thing is that Todd has had this story that he's been trying to get out for a long time, but we just didn't have the time for him before. For whatever reason, we didn't have the time for him. I apologize for that, but I'm making the time right now because I know this information needs to get out. How are you doing, Todd?
I am so good. How are you, Daniel?
I'm good. I just sat down on the old ceramic throne, the porcelain throne, and relieved myself, so I'm feeling great right now.
It's always good to do that.
It is, every so often.
Because our whole society is built around that ceramic porcelain throne.
Yeah, you might
in
be
one
right
way,
about that.
in one way or another.
I've certainly spent a lot of time in there, that's for sure.
Well, I just mean that that we're all conditioned into you got to use the restroom.
Well, it's a good time if you need to get out of an awkward date, or if you need to just think and breathe for a second, or if you need to go snort some coke.
Yeah, that's perfect place.
But anyways, Todd, I do want to journey back a little bit. We've already talked off air. There's certain topics we're going to stay away from. So we're gonna we're gonna stay away from the real dangerous information. I wish I could say more about that, but unfortunately, there are a few things that we cannot talk about tonight.
Yeah.
But there is also quite a bit that we can talk about. So I do want to, and what we always like to do is just start off the same with everybody. Todd, tell us a little bit about your birthplace. What happened? How was your childhood?
Well, I'm born in Salt Lake, and this is kind of the most important part of my story. Can you hear me okay, Daniel?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Because I don't want this to be muddled.
No, it sounds good.
I was born in Salt Lake. I'm Mormon by baptism. I've been dunked in their baptismal fonts. If you listen to past shows, I kind of gave the description of the baptism. But anyways, I was born in Salt Lake. The difference between me and pretty much every other person I know, not the world, but just that I know, was my mom taught me how to read before I could walk almost. And she taught me how to read so well that I was reading books that my parents hadn't even read by the time I was 12, and they were adults. And so I got my mom taught me how to read. Let me just put that out there.
Okay, so you were actually taught. Go ahead. Please continue.
Salt Lake, when I was a little baby, had an incredible used bookstore filled full of used books. And my mom didn't tell me what I should read. She let me read whatever I wanted. And then I learned how to read really good, and then I read whatever I wanted, and then all of a sudden I started reading books of fiction, not nonfiction. I found all these great artists, great Edgar Allan Poe, Ray Bradbury, before I ever heard of nonfiction. And
hey, Todd, did you read
my mind.
Todd, did you read that book, Something Wicked This Way Comes?
I did. Yep.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh.
I have every Ray Bradbury book, by the way, Daniel, if you ever want to borrow one.
That guy is a great writer.
He was writing those stories, Daniel, in the 50s, 1950s.
Yeah, he was one of the first, wasn't he? He was before Stephen King, and he was probably inspired by guys like Poe.
Well, what it was Poe goes back to the 1800s. Lovecraft was at the turn of the century, and Ray Bradbury was in the middle of our American centuries.
Yeah, I read that book when I was younger, and there's some really creepy imagery from that book, especially that fortune-telling gypsy lady that's inside of the glass box. You know what I'm talking about? I
do.
Yeah, that's
even better than that was Ray Bradbury's book, The Illustrated Man.
I have not read that one.
He was a carnival worker. that had his body tattooed with pictures that would tell stories. And if you looked at his arm too long, it would start to tell the story. And the whole book is based around his tattoos started to move and tell stories.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
It was way better than the book you're talking about. Bradbury wrote a bunch of stories, and they were mixed. You know, they were tossed around, Daniel, into different compilations. But Bradbury was a science fiction writer mainly, and his thoughts were the most advanced science fiction pretty much that anybody had written up in the 50s.
Yeah, I've just read the one, Something Wicked. What are some of his science fiction books that might be worth looking at?
Martian Chronicles, where he talks about how the Earth colonizes Mars. It's so incredible. The first people that go to colonize Mars, there's no one there. But there's someone there. According to the books, there's like ghosts, Martian ghosts.
No, that is an interesting concept. That's an interesting concept because nowadays you hear about stuff like that. Like you hear about some of these people saying that there are artifacts and there are dead bodies on Mars, and that used to be our old civilization.
Yep. And you know what else? You know what else is haunted about Mars?
What's that?
That's a fact. The United States and the Soviet Union attempted to send many people to outer space and Mars and probably died. And they've got recordings of their efforts.
Do you know who I wish they would send to Mars?
Who?
Gary the Mad Martian.
Oh, Daniel. Daniel, no.
Send him to Mars. That's his home, isn't it? He's a Martian.
No. I love Gary.
What do you think of him, honestly? What do you think of him, Todd?
Well, you know, Gary talks about the Brookings report, right?
Yes.
And Bill Cooper talked about the Brookings report.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
He did. He used that as part of his presentation to try to explain how the people that run the world have already held big councils and meetings, and they've decided that they're not going to let us know what they want to do, and they kind of have an idea about how we'll react once they tell us what's really going on. And so Gary's not far off base when he uses that Brookings report. It'll drive a person mad if you go look at that.
Yeah, I've looked into it a little bit, and it does appear that they receive some kind of signal or they receive some sort of information, but beyond that, I don't know.
I'm not saying Gary's mad. I'm saying I have the book, the report from Iron Mountain, and I have Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, which are ancient documents that describe the people that run our society, what they were talking about back in the 50s, how they had to get control of things or else. And they were just going to run what intelligence and information was put out. They weren't going to let it go willy-nilly, Daniel.
Okay, let's back up just a little bit, Todd. This is some good info, but I want to go back to your beginnings a little bit. You mentioned a used bookstore. At what age? At what age did you find this, and what was it that drew you into the store?
Well, what it was is my mom taught me how to read. And so I found fiction before I found nonfiction. Salt Lake had an incredible bookstore called Sam Weller's. And it was a giant used bookstore filled with old books. 100, 200-year-old books. Books you wouldn't even want to touch because you couldn't care less. But my early mind started wrapping itself around some really strange subjects, and Salt Lake had one of the most fantastic old used bookstores you've ever seen in your life. It doesn't exist anymore, though. But people that lived here, they can testify to it.
So this place, I imagine, once Amazon came around, they, like many bookstores in my area, they just ceased to be.
Yeah, they drove them out of business. They put a Barnes and Noble or something over the top of it.
Isn't that so sad when that happens? It's just such a bummer.
Well, what it is, Daniel, is they're moving the whole world out of books, and it's all going to be online, and then voices like mine, you'll never hear them again.
I mean, I'm a little bit like you, Todd, and I might have spent more time online, but I'm definitely a reader. I do love to read, and I used to go in the bookstores, and I used to sit there and read the books off the shelves, and that just doesn't really exist anymore. They have like one bookstore where I live called Half Price Books that I really love. It's a used bookstore, and that's all that's left.
Yeah. There's used bookstores, and you can go to a garage sale, but they're getting rid of books, and then you're not going to hear this story ever again.
But here's the problem with this. Here's the problem with this, Todd. Okay, so if it's in a book, you know, we could dig up a book that's thousands, 50,000 years old. We could dig up a book that's old, maybe not that old, and still read it.
Yep.
But if you put stuff on the internet, as soon as somebody unplugs that computer, it's pretty much gone, unless it's on a cloud and it's across a bunch of computers, which most things aren't and won't be ever. What
Yep.
if you unplug the computer, that information's gone. I mean, that gives the elite or whoever total control of the information that's out there.
Well, and here's the other funny thing. If you're an artist, or if you're a writer, or you're a researcher, and everything that you've done is on the internet, then if we ever have an EMP, all your shit is gone.
Yep, that's a good point. Exactly, it's all gone.
But there were people that read books. Have you ever heard of Ray Bradbury's book, Fahrenheit 451, Daniel?
Yes, only because that fat idiot Michael Moore copied his title with Fahrenheit 9/11.
Exactly, but his great show had nothing to do with Ray Bradbury's book, Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, liberal sensationist Michael Moore.
Let me tell you about the book. Ray Bradbury's that story was based on the idea that sooner or later in the future, a totalitarian, authoritarian dictatorship takes over. The only way to preserve the great works was for people to memorize them. And they burned every book. And the fire departments were used to burn the books. They weren't there to put out fires anymore. They were used to burn all the information that existed before.
Yeah, those are some really shitty firefighters. I always thought of firefighters as heroes, but not if they're burning books. You're supposed to be putting out fires, you jerks.
Oh, I know. Utah's full of fires every year. You know, there's always a fire. All year long, there's a fire. Somebody started a fire locally in our national parks, because Utah's filled with national parks.
So, Todd, you're in the bookstore. So what attracts you over to the paranormal section?
Well, what attracted me was my grandmother was psychic, was told me the only way you could describe it was folklore. And she kind of conditioned me. And I could already read, and then she showed me a few things. But my mind, Daniel, was digging towards the truth early on. Once I realized there was something going on, I dug right into it.
Now, was there a particular book that really kind of started this, that kind of turned the corner for you, or convinced you that there was something to keep looking into? Was there a particular title or author?
Well, as a little tiny kid, I was always interested in the idea of UFOs and paranormal and the occult and all that, right?
Uh-huh.
But I found Aleister Crowley and the Illuminati, and I dug deeper in. And pretty soon, I realized there was this thing that they're hiding from all of us. I realized they're hiding something. Our society's hiding something from everybody. And that is this idea of a cosmic consciousness. I had my first astral out-of-body experience when I was 12, Daniel.
12?
And, yeah, 12.
Did you have a wet dream and then just fly out of your body?
It was something just like that.
Oh, okay.
But not quite a wet dream. I mean, close. I was in love with a girl from my junior high school. This was junior high age. I was 12 years old. I had heard of astral travel, but I never did it. I fell in love with the most beautiful girl in school. And on a Friday, because I was in love, I went out of my body the first time in my life. I went to her house in an astral body, kissed her on the lips. She woke up and was shocked. And then she broke up with me Monday morning.
Oh, she was actually your girlfriend?
No, yes and no. Yes and no. We just became boyfriend, girlfriend.
And did she know what happened? Did you scare her? Is that what it was?
That's what happened in her astral state. That's the best way I could describe it. From her perspective, and I can't say for sure that's exactly what happened, but
so she's like, Todd, you creepy astral traveler, get out of my life.
Right. She didn't say anything, Daniel. She just was shocked.
Wow.
So was I. And then I flipped back into my body because that's how that worked. And then I realized, oh my God, there's an astral. Everybody has an astral self.
You know, Todd, I used to drive by my ex-girlfriend's house, but that's a different problem.
Oh, I know. It's a whole different thing. Because, Daniel, I could never go back. I don't control it. I didn't say that I can come to your house and give you a kiss on the cheek. I said that my very first experience was like that. And she broke up with me Monday morning, and that was proof. That was evidence that I had done something I didn't know and she didn't know that I'd done. I traveled out of my body.
Todd, if you do that to me, I'm going to trap your astral body in a bottle of Jack Daniels.
I know. If you ever see me, Daniel, put me right back in the bottle of Jack Daniels.
Yeah, you'll be a Jack Daniels genie.
I didn't know whether I was going to tell that very first astral story tonight, but I might as well because that's where it started. That
Well,
doesn't mean that I learned how to control the astral plane.
no, Todd, I joke around, but I'm with you. I've had these types of experiences myself, and I know that it happens even at an early age, somewhat
Yeah,
unconsciously. So, definitely not out of
yeah,
the realm of things that I believe in.
yeah. And so, I'm sorry my story's so unusual, but it goes on to where I never learned how to get control of the astral plane, but it did give me that very first experience where I was like, oh my God, you can leave your body. There's a cord that attaches you, and I don't even know if there's a cord that attaches you. I don't even buy into that because eventually, what happened to me, Daniel, was I spent a lot of time as a kid down there at those used bookstores, and I started getting into magic. And the deeper I got into magic, what I wanted to know is what works. The only reason that you're even involved in magic or paranormal, if you're involved in in magic, is what works. And so I went through all these ancient books on magic, these old books. Before I ever learned, this is just the part I wanted to tell you, Daniel. Are you still there?
Go ahead, Todd.
Before I ever learned about the conspiracy, I learned about magic. So I approached this whole subject from a nonfiction point of view. H.P. Lovecraft is one of my greatest influences because before I got into magic, I had learned about magic from nonfiction writers.
Yeah, I have heard that quite a bit since getting into this stuff. This connection between Lovecraft and the reality out there. Actually, what happened to me, not to get too off track, was a certain person came into my life and taught me certain things and was telling me about ceremonial magic, and he was connecting it to Lovecraft. And at the time, I thought it was just crazy, but apparently there is some kind of connection here.
Oh yeah, there's a connection. And it's hard to find unless you know, unless you're well read. But it's there. Let me explain the connection just for the hell of it.
Go.
H.P. Lovecraft wrote a lot of different types of nonfiction. It's not real. But he created some intellectual concepts like the Necronomicon, a fictional book that doesn't exist and yet it does. He was basing it upon some books that already existed, and they were grimoires that proclaimed that they were ways to open portals, contact beings, bring shit through from the other side. That's why Lovecraft stuff is so powerful, is because nobody ever wrote that shit before, and he was writing this in the 30s.
Yeah, very interesting, and it makes you wonder, and this is an accusation that I've heard many times, it makes you wonder if he himself was part of one of these inner circles or part of some sort of lineage of ritual magic.
I'm going to give you every connection. Okay, let me explain this to everybody that's listening and gives a shit. Aleister Crowley was a magician. Aleister Crowley proclaimed that he had contacted a being from outside of time and space. H.P. Lovecraft was the first author that really got into his monsters were coming from beyond time and space. There were things that exist between the dimensions. H.P. Lovecraft tried to explain that his monsters existed before we ever came around. They're ancient. Aleister Crowley claimed to have gotten in touch with beings that existed way before we got here.
Hey, Todd.
And,
Todd, just to stop you right there, I just want to throw one thing in. And you might have been intending to touch on this, but one thing that I find interesting about what you just said is that the ancient Sumerians, they had a group that was supposedly here on the earth before the Anunnaki came, and they sound very similar to these beings that you were talking about just now.
yes, the old ones. Lovecraft called them the old ones. Call them whatever you want. But there is a preternatural intelligence that exists beyond ourselves. Listen to me. If you racial prejudice against other races, there are insects that are already developing intelligence around you. When you disappear as a human being, insects are going to fill in around you. So don't think that you're the only intelligence in this universe. Do you know what I'm talking about, Daniel?
Yeah. I get what you're saying, that eventually the insects on our planet, they're going to reach some sort of sentience, just like we have, and there's other animals like dolphins or octopi that are incredibly smart.
Yes, before we ever got here, cockroaches were running the place. We're a very small portion of the intelligence that existed on this planet.
It's just, Todd, all these liberals out there, they just get me confused because they're so stupid.
Well, Daniel, they're doing what they can. If we give them a couple of hints, they might go back and look at what I'm talking about, or you.
That's very true. I like it.
And, you know, to be honest, I gotta say, I'm a humanitarian. I care about man. It's the only reason I'm involved.
Okay. So you like men? Okay, continue.
Have since I was a young'un. You know, I was kind of sold into the American way, Daniel.
Yeah, now, hold on a second, Todd. There was one other thing that I wanted to touch on. You're actually, you talk about the American way. You're a huge fan of rock music, aren't you?
I love music. Man, I just listen to music and history of it. And yep.
And speaking of occult connections, there's a big connection between the occult world and the world of rock music or heavy metal.
Yes.
Like
most people don't know that they think music just formed naturally. But in actuality, everything you're hearing ran through a couple of fucking music moguls. It ran through a giant music industry. Most people don't know that all your favorite hits, they were probably formed by a military operation.
Oh, that's depressing.
I know, it's a bummer, but no, it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it, because the military probably found the best music and then they just formed it into a glob of shit they could use against you.
So everybody, like including the Beatles, were the Beatles part of this?
They were part of it. Yep.
No!
They got him.
John, Paul.
Yeah, they killed
Ringo.
John Lennon. Elvis. Go back through Elvis. As soon as they got him in the military, it was all over.
Is that what happened with Elvis? Did they kill him?
Well, no, they didn't kill him. They killed his spirit. And then they sent him to Vegas so he could get fat and eat a bunch of chicken and take a bunch of drugs that they were bringing in.
I hope that's not true, Todd. I hope it's not true.
Well, I'll say this. If you go back in old books, you remember how we were talking about old books?
Mm-hmm.
they talk about the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars were fought by England long before the Opium Wars were fought in the United States. England flooded Asian countries with heroin back in the day. We went to Vietnam, our country was flooded by heroin. And then they brought in the music. And I love all that music, Daniel. All the great music made by people on drugs. That's just a fact.
Yeah, that's true. I would say that, like, once again, the Beatles, they were experimenting quite a bit with LSD, weren't they?
Oh, LSD, everything. By the time Lennon met Yoko Ono, it was over.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And then he got
Yoko.
shot.
Yeah. Have you ever heard her music?
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's horrible. It is so bad.
It's
like
horrible. It's way bad.
Yeah, it is. I heard this one song, and Yoko's just like yelling into the microphone. She's going, "Wah, la, 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 la." And I'm thinking, like, what the hell is this?
I think she thought she could ride John Lennon's coattails, which she did pretty much, because you would never have listened if she hadn't been married to him.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these other bands, similar stuff was going on, and both the Beatles and the Beach Boys, they were actually connected to Charles Manson, weren't they?
Yeah, let me tell you about the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys, who I know and love, they're out there in California. There's a really weird area of California where all these bands got together. Man, Charles Manson, those murders occurred out in that area all at that same time. Rather than put the whole story for you together, just realize all those bands were coming out of that same area while that mind control operation was going on. And I do think it was a mind control operation, Daniel.
Wait, hold on. Do you mean Southern California, that area?
Yep.
Okay.
That area right there, everybody was there, all the great bands, all the great influences. It's not a coincidence that they got the best guitarists and they put the best riffs together. It's a fucking conspiracy. I don't got the ties. I don't got the connections. But I can tell you right now, all those great songs, man, they were flowing from that period. And you know, you go, so what? So what? That doesn't matter. A whole generation was changed. The drugs and the influence and the assassinations and the change of our political system.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that, Todd? My former co-host on this show, he liked to use a slogan called "Tune in, turn on, and drop out," and that was the slogan created by Timothy Leary. But I don't think that he even knows who Tim Leary is or really knows much about him, because Leary actually worked for the CIA, right?
He did. Yep, he did. And you know what the CIA did? They took LSD and they spread it all across the United States in the late 50s. And they put it out to universities and they gave it to professors. And that's how Timothy Leary first come into for his first contact with CIA. It was with LSD. It was a government operation.
Yeah, there's a guy out there, Todd. I forget what the heck his name is, but we invited him on the show before, and he is really Jan Irvin, and he is so into this idea that the entire psychedelic revolution of the 60s was started by the Illuminati, and it seems that you're kind of confirming that.
Well, let me go further back.
Go ahead.
And let me give not authorization, but let me give some confirmation to that theory. The CIA created, or they at least got control of LSD. The very first person that found LSD was a scientist, and it was by accident. And as soon as they found it, they grabbed right a hold of it, and they started experimenting with it. The Grateful Dead, you can't even listen to their music without taking some LSD. Used to drop LSD at their concerts. This is what their descriptions of the show said.
Well, yeah, that the whole Grateful Dead, the touring, the crowd that would follow them, it was all pretty much all about either LSD or whatever psychedelic drugs that they could find at the time, right?
Yep. And there were not just musicians, Daniel. There were authors that worked for the CIA that were traveling around and writing stories about how great the Grateful Dead is, and the big expanding mind music scene, when this is all a military operation.
Yeah, I've heard that the main guy, what's his name? The Grateful Dead, the main guy.
Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, sorry about that. Jerry Garcia. I should know that. But Jerry Garcia, I've heard that he might have been some kind of agent or something like that. Do you believe that?
Daniel, it goes so far beyond that because everybody's surrounded with our CIA. Let me tell you something recent, Daniel.
Go ahead.
You know the ranchers up in Washington or Montana or wherever those, the Bundys.
Okay, cattle rancher, sure.
The cattle ranchers. You remember how they shot that guy in the face and killed him?
Yeah, bad move.
They arrested 8 of them. They killed one of them.
Uh-huh.
They've released all of them free of any charge. And guess what? The verdict finally was there was about 7 or 8 undercover agents the whole time in their whole operation. So our government's paying lots of people to be everywhere all the time, every day.
Yeah, I heard about this thing called COINTELPRO, where the government, they had agents hidden in amongst people in certain musical genres, like the punk music scene. There's CIA people in there, and of course, it doesn't surprise me what you're telling me about the ranchers. It makes sense because they probably want to frame these people eventually so they can take all our guns away.
Well, what they do is they send people to be your friend, and then those friends betray you in court with the government.
Wait, Todd, you don't work for the government, do you?
Not whatsoever.
Okay, just checking.
I'm a freedom fighter, Daniel.
Okay, I just have to check every now and then.
But I should tell you my political philosophy.
Okay.
I'm a libertarian. Go listen to Ron Paul if you want to know what I think the government should look like. And it's so far from what our government is, but I'm also a capitalist. I follow Ayn Rand, and I'm a capitalist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, that's fine. I'm with you. I believe in America. I'm a real American man. I like fast cars, guitars, and comic books.
Oh, I love fast cars, guitars, and comic books. I love those. I could go on for hours about them.
That's because you're a real man, Todd.
Well, let me tell you one thing I didn't mention. I'm an artist. I draw. I know you think that I'm just a vocational expert, but I'm actually an artist. I draw cartoons. I draw whatever. But I love to draw cartoons, and the reason I got into that is because my grandmother gave me a subscription to Mad magazine when I was a little baby.
That's
Can you picture it, Daniel?
Yeah, I know Mad Magazine. I used to be a big fan of the show Mad TV, and that was a actual spin-off, or it was based on Mad Magazine. So after watching Mad TV, I'd go back when I was at the grocery store and I'd pick up that Mad Magazine, and that's how I found out that it was actually around since, back when you were a kid, if not before.
The Mad magazine started back in 1952, 1953. When Mad first came out, there were a number of comic books, but they were considered dangerous. And so Mad was one among many. There was one called Crazy. There was one called Cracked. There was one called Insane. The government went against comic books back in the 1950s in the United States.
They went after comic books?
They actually
God,
held
I
the
hate
commission.
them. I hate those fuckers.
No, they held the commission to decide what comic books could be printed and what couldn't. Mad barely got through.
I wonder what they cut out.
Well, no, Mad never cut out anything.
No, I mean, I wonder which comics they wouldn't let be published. Was there like a Nazi Superman, or what was it?
No, Daniel, you know how Tales of the Crypt?
Yeah.
That was published by Mad.
Oh, I didn't know
Mad
that.
was part of Tales from the Crypt, yeah.
I had no idea.
The original publisher is a guy named William Gaines, and he was a crazy dude that loved horror stories, and he let all the artists do whatever they wanted to do, and it freaked out the people in the 1950s because they'd never seen any kind of artwork like that.
I remember, well, I don't remember, but I know back then, a lot of the popular comics were like House of Secrets, House of Mystery, like horror themed stuff, Dracula. You would see much, you don't see that anymore. People aren't into those horror comics. But I'm still wondering what the heck kind of comics that the government said weren't okay to publish. I want to know what was in them. That sounds hilarious.
House of Secrets, Daniel, was in the 60s. EC Comics. You know how you got DC Comics?
Yes.
Spider-Man?
Yes. Actually, it stands for Detective Comics.
Before DC, there was EC Comics. And that was Mad Magazine, 1950s.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm an underground comic artist. I didn't want to tell you about that, but I'm published. I'll send you some cartoons that I've been published in, Daniel. I kind of wanted to stay off the radar. You know, I didn't want to jump into any of this, but I have a lot of thoughts on it, and when you gave me the opportunity, I thought, let's do it.
No, Todd, that's fine with me. I'm a comic book geek. See, before I wasn't able to talk about any of this stuff because as soon as I would try to talk about any of this stuff, it would, well, you know what would happen. There would be a big voice talking over me constantly. So I wasn't able to. But I love comics like Spider-Man, Silver Surfer, the X-Men. All of it's great. I could talk about comics for hours.
Batman, Superman. But I didn't call to talk about comics. I wanted to talk about the deeper subjects that I spent a long time researching.
Yeah, actually, let me back you up a little bit, Todd.
Back me up.
Yeah, there was a particular book that inspired you that you told me about privately. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Anything.
It was by a guy named Gary Allen. Yeah, why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, let me explain this. And this is me. If I got 2 minutes. I was a little kid. I found nonfiction, secret societies in the United States or whatever. But the one book that changed my life, and I will say this, if you want to go have your life changed, go look for a book called None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen. Basically, it explained how our world is controlled. They want a one-world government. If you want to know what's going on, just keep in mind that they want a one-world government.
And this book was published like back in the 70s, right?
1970.
So before William Cooper, before David Icke, before any of these people, this guy, Gary Allen, wrote a book called None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, where he laid all of this stuff out.
Laid all this stuff out. Not magical, not the magic end, the political end.
But yeah, and that's good because that's the ground floor material stuff that we can prove.
Yep.
Okay.
And so let me explain this, Daniel. This is so weird. There were groups of people back in even the 60s, the John Birch Society, that were fighting against the one world government that could see it coming. Told you all about it. By the time the 80s rolled around and Reagan got here, there were a number of fantastic books that tried to explain to you the metal machine that's coming to mulch all of us. And then a number of writers came in and tried to save our lives. Now you've got Alex Jones on the radio that claims to be the voice of freedom. But
oh, okay, hold on a second, Todd. Let me stop us right there because you did bring up Alex Jones.
Yeah.
So Alex Jones, like you said, he's a more modern type of conspiracy guy, but a lot of people seem to think that he is a disinformation agent or some sort of controlled opposition. What do you think of that idea?
Well, it was kind of weird because I told you off air, Daniel, that when 9/11 happened, I got so freaked out. I realized I gotta look back at all this and see what's going on, and then there's Alex Jones, and he's there representing all of us, right? Alex Jones puts out a lot of good information. You can't deny that. But he's got a big operation that he's selling nutrogenics. I think the nutrogenics thing throws me when you're talking about the pills, the vitamins.
That's funny that you mentioned that because earlier, like right before you came on, while I was warming up for the show, I was watching Alex Jones' YouTube channel, and I'm watching this serious discussion about this Pizzagate thing, and all of a sudden on the top of the screen, I see an advertisement for friggin' penis pills, Viagra stuff. Like, what the hell does that have to do with conspiracy? Like, what is getting a boner have to do with any of it? Like, are you kidding me? What the hell?
Well, Daniel, every male needs a boner.
Oh, yeah. I thought we were concerned about the global conspiracy, not getting a boner. Jeez.
That'd be pretty wild if me and you all of a sudden broke off all of a sudden and said, hold on a second, we got to sell some boner pills.
I probably should sell boner pills. That's something that I probably could sell off of here. That's like the one thing.
Well, I got friends that they're like, fuck, I need some boner pills.
Hey, it happens to the best of us.
So I'm sure some people need some boner pills.
Yeah, I mean, like, while you're researching conspiracy, you need to take a break every once in a while and have some fun, I guess. Whatever.
Oh, Dad, you're on to it now. No, I'm just teasing, and we're getting a little off track from what I would have talked about. But let me tell you this on Alex Jones. I got to say this, Daniel. I'm a capitalist, so sell the fuck out of yourself. Sell yourself. If you've got something to offer, give it out. People will buy it. You know what would be nice is if our society just let people buy what they wanted. Our society's set up as a giant monopoly where everything's regulated, Daniel, and they control all of our dollars back through. They funnel it back into their own pockets, Daniel.
Yeah, that's true. So what happens is that because they control the money, they get to decide all of the inflation rates and things like that.
Everything, not just inflation, but information that you would hear.
And because they're loaning out the money, well, that gives them control over everything because we need them to loan us the money.
Can you imagine if I sent you, say, Daniel, $20,000, and I said, Daniel, here's $20,000. Go have a good time. I'm going to call you later. Can you imagine how you would feel? You'd be like, oh, God, I'm going to go spend a bunch of money.
I'm going to the strip club. Ah!
But that's what they do to themselves and amongst themselves.
Well, yeah.
And you know what? You know what, Daniel? That's money that you and I sit here and work all day. They siphon that off our tax dollars.
Yeah, you know, on one of those Alex Jones videos, he was talking about one of these Rothschilds guys, and this is one of the younger ones. Like he's this, pretty boy, playboy type, and he's spending his weekend on a yacht, a boat that costs like $1 billion. It's insane.
Oh yeah, the Rothschild's grandson or his nephew or whatever. He's going to be the one that takes over. It's not the Rothschilds, Daniel. It was Soros. It was Soros' cousin, nephew.
Oh well, this was a different one because this was definitely a Rothschild. It's one of the younger ones.
Yeah, I think it was Soros' nephew, but Daniel.
Go ahead.
You're supposed to say yes.
Go ahead.
Before I let you go, I want to talk about secret societies.
Let me go. We just started.
Oh, I know, but I have to say this about secret societies.
If you need to take a shit or something, just go and squeeze it out and then come back.
No, I'll just do it on air. No, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
I don't need to take a shit. Pardon my French.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that on air. That's nasty.
No, I'm just teasing. I would never do that.
Yeah, that would be gross. I'm not that way. That'd be gross.
That sounds horrible. Oh. Anyways, I wanted to talk about secret societies.
Okay, but I want to back up just a little bit real quick because there's one thing that I know you wanted to talk about that you haven't yet, and that's the band Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne.
So you're a big Black Sabbath fan, just like me. I mean, I got into this band when I was a teenager. Obviously, they've been around forever. And what stood out for me, of course, was they are pretty much it's my understanding that they're the first real metal band.
Well, they tried. Judas Priest goes back to 1970. Go look up Judas Priest, 1970.
Oh, wow, they go back that far. I did not know that.
Yeah, they weren't popular until British Steel and some of their other albums in the middle of the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah, I always thought
of them.
I always thought of Judas Priest like a late 70s, 80s band.
No, their very best stuff, Daniel, some of it was 1970s, Judas Priest.
Yeah, that was a great band. They're definitely underrated considering what they contributed. I mean, all of these like young people that they wear their Metallica shirts and stuff like that, they don't even know about Judas Priest. No,
they don't. And Metallica even was coming in. They were around. I have a friend that was actually playing in a band for Metallica. Well, he was their warm-up band. He was in a band that was their warm-up band. You know him, Al. We've had some crazy conversations. You know Al.
Yeah, he's called us before.
Yeah, he's real. He's from California. I'm kind of a musician. You know, we've talked about music.
Yeah.
My cousin came in second place on the best drummer in Utah at the Guitar Center.
Sweet deal.
He faced off against 17 drummers. That's how bad he is. And that doesn't mean anything either. I've always been just kind of musically inclined. I'm surrounded by people into music. I love music. How did I get off on music?
Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about Black Sabbath.
Sabbath.
I was saying that's also one of my favorite bands. I really like that particular sound that they invented and that style of kind of the medieval sort of horror style that they invented. I love that stuff.
Well, let me talk about Sabbath and blow their fucking reputation apart since you love them so much.
Okay.
A band existed before Black Sabbath existed called Coven. And they put out a song called Black Sabbath. And Black Sabbath ripped it off full tilt. Black Sabbath didn't even exist. Go on YouTube. Pull up Martha Stewart on MTV interviews Tony Iommi, where she questioned him about the origin of their name, and he didn't even want to talk about it because a female band existed that had all the concepts of Black Sabbath before Black Sabbath existed. It's really weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Go there.
Okay, I'll definitely check that out. And
You remember Martha Stewart from MTV?
no.
She was that kind of cute, nerdy girl that existed in the 80s. They introduced every video on MTV for 15 years.
Oh, yeah, I remember somebody like that. I was just a kid at the time.
Exactly. So she gets Tony Iommi on there, Ozzy's guitarist, and she says, Tony, did you steal this? And he didn't want to say anything because they stole it.
You know, there's even a song that they say that Stairway to Heaven was actually ripped off of. You know, that most famous Led Zeppelin song.
Well,
have you heard that one?
How do they rip off their own song?
No. Well, you see, what happened was that the beginning of Stairway to Heaven, it was ripped off of a song by another band.
That down, 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 down.
Yeah.
That's ripped off?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Jimmy Page, he actually just lifted it off of somebody else.
Who?
I would have to go back and look that up, but you can find it on YouTube. It's really weird.
Well, let me tell you something interesting about Jimmy Page. He bought Aleister Crowley's house.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
He lived there, and he was looking for astral intelligences. Let me tell you a story about astral intelligence that I went through.
Okay.
When I was 17, I'm 50. I met a group of people. No one knew anyone. And there were two women that sat around a Ouija board. They said they were receiving communications, and everybody in the room sat around and listened. I wrote notes. I never got better messages from a Ouija board than that time.
What did it say? What did it say?
Well, it was well organized, kind of. The Ouija board was organizing the people. Nobody knew each other. They were getting into your past lives, and they were going into the future. Every meeting would be a different revelation. This was years ago, and it no longer exists, so don't write me wanting to know about what they're saying now, because it doesn't exist anymore. But anyways,
now, Todd, wait, hold on
Daniel?
a second. Hold on a second. Did they actually predict anything, or did they
Yep,
give forth?
Yep.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you know what they said, Daniel?
What's that?
They said, Atlantis, it wasn't in the past, it was in the future.
What?
Yeah. Whoa! And that was back 15, 20 years ago, and I went, motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't know about that
sorry
one.
about my French.
I don't know about that one. I think Atlantis was in the past.
Oh, I know, because that's how I'd always been raised. To think of it as a past concept, a civilization that came and went. But to shape that story a little bit, because I threw that out of the blue, the Ouija board would say, okay, everybody take a break and meditate, and whatever comes to your mind, we'll talk about it later. And then we'd meditate and get back together, and the Ouija would explain what your visualizations were that you saw while you were meditating.
And that didn't scare the poop out of you?
Well, no, because I was on a quest for the truth, and life was already getting pretty strange. My first Ouija board experience, Daniel, I think I told you, it said, I'm going to kill you. The very first time I got on a Ouija board, it was threatening me. It wasn't until I was older in life that they would talk naturally. They wouldn't threaten me.
Todd, my opinion on that and my belief has mostly been that when you experiment with a Ouija board, just like the movie The Exorcist, you're most likely not talking to whatever the entity is claiming to be. It's most likely a demon, right?
Well, here's how it goes. When I was little, this is a great story. Can
Todd,
I tell
the way you're laughing like that, you're scaring me. You sound so sinister.
I know. I might as well tell this story.
Go ahead.
How I got into this. Well, I was young. When I heard about the occult, I was interested. I'm like, oh, Ouija boards, this, that. I went and tried some Ouija boards when I was young. They all wanted to kill me. They were threatening me. And it wasn't until I got older that they started talking to me in a more, where they didn't want to kill me.
Well, what changed? Did you become a nicer person, or did you? Why did they?
What it was, I realized that it wasn't the Ouija board. It was something that exists in all of us. Inside of all of us, Daniel, is a positive side and a light side. Don't care who you are. Don't care how special you are. There's something inside you that would kill you if it could. There's a part of you that would do you in. And that's just a fact of life. Most people don't realize that, but it's true. And I ran into it when I was a young kid, and then I figured out that's who it was. It was my dark side.
Maybe.
And I'm friends with my dark side now, Daniel.
You're friends with your
It's like
dark side.
oh, you have to be.
Okay. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
You better know you inside and out. On the entrance to the secret societies, going back as far as mankind has existed, they said, you better know yourself or don't even come in here. And part of knowing yourself is realizing that you have a dark side and a light side. That's a fact of the universe. It's just a fact.
Interesting. So, okay. So, I suppose this would be what some people out there refer to as the shadow.
Kind of.
And they call it shadow work when you go in and you deal with your issues, so to speak.
Chaos magicians call it shadow time.
One thing that I find interesting in my everyday life is I find that many people that I deal with, they're unable to look themselves in the mirror figuratively. Like they're not honest with. I hope that when I'm fucking up or I'm making a mistake, I hope that I'm honest about it. I try to be. Like, if I do something that is wrong, I will apologize to the person that I wronged, or I will be at least honest with myself about it. But it seems like a lot of these people nowadays, they're in complete denial when they're being assholes. It seems like that to me.
Well, Daniel, you could look at yourself in the mirror and be honest. Or you could continue to fool yourself. And if you look at yourself in the mirror and be honest, then you're saving yourself a number of steps way ahead of time. If you get around being dishonest with yourself, then you can be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things to do in this type of occult/esoteric work, I really feel like the beginning of it all is just having some kind of basic honesty with yourself. You're not going to get anywhere unless you can do that.
If you're not honest, nothing's going to happen. I mean, literally, you're losing ground. It's like quicksand. You can't stand on anything if there isn't anything that you're honest about. And you better be honest about who you are and
exactly
what it is you're trying to.
I mean, I don't have time to swim around in my own narcissistic bullshit, and I don't have the time to swim around in anybody else's narcissistic bullshit.
Nope, and I wouldn't, in my opinion is, please don't get lost in all of my old esoteric bullshit. But realize I've seen a lot of shit. It's pretty solid, and we need to move forward as fast as we can. These guys are mechanized. You know how we talk about things on esoteric levels, Daniel?
Uh-huh.
These guys are dealing with shit that's monetary and mechanized. They're spending all of our money. They're moving out against us militarily. And we need to move out against them esoterically.
Okay, Todd, that does bring us to our next subject, and you've already kind of gone down this route, but I want to talk a little bit about secret societies, and I'll start that off by asking you a question. What is a secret society, and how does the secret society differ in reality from our idea of what they are? Like, when I think of well, this isn't what I think, but let's say I'm a normal person who goes to work every day and watches football and drinks beer. To me, a secret society is nothing more than a fraternity. It's something that you join when you want to get together with a bunch of other jackass white males and have a drink or whatever. What is it really?
Let me explain what it is really. And are you listening?
Yes, Todd, I'm listening. I have headphones on, and they do not let me not listen to you.
Every society on Earth has a secret society attached to it for thousands of years. Do you get that?
Yeah, definitely. You go all the way back to this is me. This is me trying to be knowledgeable. But if you go all the way back to the ancient Babylonian civilization, that's our earliest traces of anything like that. The Babylonian mystery schools.
No, Daniel, I'm going to go further.
Okay, go further.
Into the jungles. Watch a National Geographic program. They take you into these tribes that have never seen an advanced civilization, right?
Okay.
You can watch. They find tribes all the time that have never seen a white man. They just found one a month ago.
Tribes
A white man.
Tribes of naked people wearing loincloths.
Yep. And they study them. Cultural anthropologists have studied them. And guess what? They're using the same techniques of mind control, of programming. What's happened today is our modern culture has institutionalized these methods of mind control. They know how to mold your mind. They know how to make it more flexible and then how to instill stuff in it. Trauma, like you were saying, Daniel, is their main method. They induce trauma. But it goes back 40,000 years, not 2,000 or 3,000. It goes back 40,000 years.
Okay, good point.
Assholes have been.
Okay, Todd.
Assholes.
Good point. Assholes. Yes. One thing I want to add to that is that that's a good point that you make about the trauma, and I did talk about that earlier. And one thing that I find interesting, and this is stuff that I've read, is that in a lot of the secret society initiations, like I believe this one might be the Skull and Bones, they have you sit in a coffin and talk about your whole sexual history in front of a group. And what could be more traumatic than that?
Let me tell you about Skull and Bones. May I?
Yeah, you can circle back to what you're talking about, or if you want to talk about that, go ahead. Whatever you want to do.
I'm an expert on the Skull and Bones. They would make their members lie in a coffin naked. Someone would tie a red ribbon around your genitals. And they give you a new name. They give you a new name, Daniel, when you get born out of your coffin after the initiation's over. And a bunch of old fucking white guys sit there and moan around you and try to pretend to be the class above you, tries to pretend to just freak you out. Let me freak you out.
Hey,
you don't got to go to the Skull and Bones Temple. Let me freak you out.
Okay.
Let me tell you what they're doing. They're inducing trauma so they can initiate their members. We're doing similar things here, but they're doing it purposely, politically, over hundreds of years to change our society and our culture.
No, I'm totally with you. I think that for most of history, people have ruled each other by the whip. And they can't really do that so much nowadays because, there's humanitarian laws in place and stuff like that. But that's how it's mostly been. It's been a very brutal world where it's been masters and slaves. And that's the sad, hellish reality that we're trying to get away from.
But let me tell you this, because I want to end on a positive note. The Skull and Bones that exist on the campus of Yale University only indoctrinates 15 people every year. So at any given time, there's only 250 members alive. And so that means there's only 250 living members.
Okay.
There's a bunch of other secret societies that exist, and they have lots of members. But they're only initiating so many because they don't want to have a bunch of yahoos. They want to have it just enough that they can control, like George Bush and Barack Obama. Barack's not a member of Skull and Bones as far as I know, but he might as well be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that likely President Obama, he's probably a good guy, a nice guy. Everything that I've seen from him has led me to believe that. However, he has been sponsored most of his political career, or at least the presidency, by George Soros, and he's also given a speech in front of the Trilateral Commission, or it might have been the Council of Foreign Relations, one of the two, and that tells you all you need to know right there.
Well, I gotta say this. The reason we're in trouble, all of us, is because, as Eisenhower said, beware the military-industrial complex. There are giant councils of men that sit above you. You know, the conspiracy is nothing but giant councils of men that have already decided how our future is going to go.
Yeah, like
They
the Council of
Obama,
the Council of Foreign Relations.
CFR, the Trilateral Organization.
Now, Todd,
Yeah,
Todd, I didn't know about any of this stuff until I read, and I'm still reading it, a book called, what's it called? The Pale Horse by William Cooper. Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper.
Yeah.
I think everybody that's listening right now, and I'm sure you would agree with me, I think everybody needs to go read that book.
Just go read that book. Can I interject, Daniel?
Of course, go ahead.
On that book, I met Bill Cooper. He was a little wild, but he was trying to tell you something before they killed him. He was trying to tell you that, look, there's a conspiracy, and they're hiding the aliens. They're hiding the secret societies. Daniel, he got big into secret societies. You know how you think he's all UFOs and aliens? No. He told me that the reason they didn't, the reason they let him to see what he did, because he was a young member of the Jacques de Molay. That's the young Masonic order.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those guys.
De Molay Society. I have friends that are being invited into the Masons. The Masons aren't bad, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Not on a whole.
Yeah, the thing...
But they're members.
Yeah, the thing with that, Todd, I'm going to explain that real quick. So, when you go into a society like that, a secret society, it pretty much is a fraternity. I mean, they're not bad people necessarily. It's only when you work your way up the ladder and you get into the core and meat and bones of the society or organization, that's the only time you're going to really encounter any connections to anything else.
And here's what I would say for those that say, is it good or is it bad? How's our society going? Is it going good or is it going bad?
Well, I would say that...
bad.
Yeah, I would say that it's going bad. I mean, obviously, right?
It's breaking down.
Yeah.
It's not by chance. These guys are too smart for it to break down by chance.
Yeah, and there are things that exist out there, that certain documents that are oftentimes labeled as fake, but there's the Protocols of Zion, and there's also the documents that were found on the Bavarian Illuminati, the guy on horseback, the lightning hit the horse or hit him, and they found all the documents. And they used that to expose the Bavarian Illuminati, and that's how this whole thing kind of came to the forefront, right?
Well, on the Illuminati, they got busted because one of their writers got hit by lightning on horseback.
Yeah, pretty
in the
interesting.
1600s. All these documents fell into the barbarian government's hands. They published it to warn all the countries of Europe that a secret society was infiltrating their governments.
And the idea here, because I know a lot of people listening, they're not going to understand this because we're kind of going all over the place, but the idea is that at the core of these secret societies, not saying that the secret societies themselves are evil or anything like that, but what the accusation is that at the core it's been corrupted by a worldwide Luciferian movement to reshape the world into a new world order, right?
Kind of.
Kind of. That's one take on it.
Even that's been hijacked, Daniel. That's how complex this is.
I don't doubt it.
That's how complex this is that even that concept's been hijacked. And now we're going to a new concept, Daniel. Do you know what, Daniel, what the coolest thing about you?
My good looks?
You've opened your good looks. God, you're good looking. Oh, I love you. But, Daniel.
Oh, Todd.
One of the weirdest things is even that concept has been hijacked, overthrown, hijacked 3 times, and now you don't even know what the future holds. This fucker's riding off into the... Daniel, can you picture it? We can't even picture what this wild horse looks like that we've unleashed off into the future. And that is just a search for the truth, a free market of just, we want to know. We want to know. I already know what number of things, but I'd like to know and have a free forum where information can be exchanged, and your show is that.
And another interesting thing about this Bavarian Illuminati, there are certain connections there to guys that were part of secret societies in America at the time, including one Albert Pike, who actually created the KKK, and there's even a statue of the racist bastard in Washington, D.C. Go figure.
Well, let me tell you, if there are any Illuminati fans that go into this deep research,
okay,
the Illuminati, as it's known in America, Thomas Jefferson was a member. And they got their charter, Daniel, from a German secret society. The Skull and Bones did. Skull and Bones.
I've heard that. I've heard the story of, I think it was back in it might have been the 70s or 80s, a group of students actually broke into the Skull and Bones headquarters, the room or building where they had everything, and they found a bunch of swastikas and things like that.
Yep. Well, I don't know about swastikas. That sounds like some kind of... Daniel, they got skulls.
The thing is that what we're getting into now is the connection between the Bush family and the Nazis. George W. Bush's grandfather, he was part of an organization, a company that funded the Nazis. So there's definitely some very strong ties between, what you're saying, the German secret societies and the WASP, the White Anglo-Saxon, whatever. and the Skull and Bones. There's some very close connections there. They've been covered up, but those guys are Nazis.
Well, let me give everybody an uncomfortable picture that'll probably get me killed.
Well, I'm right there with you, Todd. They're going to have to take us both because they're going to have to go through me to get to you.
Oh, I know. That's really weird. I love that. I got a second person to back me up when they come to rush me, kill me. Those bastards. I'm just teasing.
I'll protect you. I'll protect you, Todd. I know jiu-jitsu.
Oh, you know jiu-jitsu? My family knows a lot of karate.
And when they're shooting those bullets at me, I'm just going to raise my hand up, and all the bullets are going to stop in midair.
Well, you know how you talked about, raising your hand in midair, kind of like the Matrix?
Uh-huh.
Well, let me say the last, one last part on artificial intelligence.
Wait, hold on, Todd. We're going a little long. You want to take a little break, get some coffee or something? I got to pee again.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay, let's take a little break. Let's break for like 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll finish our conversation. We'll get a little bit more into it.
Sounds good.
Okay, breaking now.
Okay. Oh my God, we're taking a break. I wish if we're still on air. Daniel, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead. I'm going to go use the bathroom. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do.
But we're not live. We're not live, right?
No. I turned everything off.
Oh, good. I'm going to go use the bathroom.
Yeah, we got some music playing. So
I could use it.
Okay, sounds good.
Are we doing okay so far, Daniel?
Yeah. We'll get more into it after we come back.
I'm not freaking you out, right?
No.
Oh, good. I love you, my man. We'll talk to you in 10 minutes.
All right, talk to you in a bit. Todd.
Hello.
There you are.
Oh, yeah, it was nice to take a break.
You ready to go live again?
I'm so ready.
All right, here we go. I'm going to pull it up right now. Let's see here. And here we go. Let's test things out real quick. Make sure it's working. And here we go. Okay, we are back. Welcome back to End of Days Radio. I do apologize to everybody for the short break there. Unfortunately, Todd, I think he's been doing a little drinking, so we had a little trouble getting back together. But he's back. We got him back, and we are ready to head into the meat and bones of the interview. So, Todd, I want to go ahead and skip ahead and get to our main topic that I invited you here to talk about this evening, which is chaos magic. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you found chaos magic, what it is, and what it means to us and what we're doing here?
Well, I would just explain that in terms of how I found magic. I was a young child when I found Crowley. I'm 50 now. I think I found Crowley when I was 10. Crowley is just a magician that was hanging out around a bunch of magicians that were exploring facets of our consciousness and how you can use different techniques and tricks to make things occur around you. Crowley was a magician, but he wasn't the first magician.
Yeah, he wasn't the first at all, but he definitely took things in a very unique and novel direction.
Yeah, not only unique and novel direction, he rebelled. That's why he's known as the Beast, 666. He was the cause of the Golden Dawn's breakup. The Golden Dawn was a magic fraternity that existed at the turn of the century, that all the elite, all the our writers, our people in England, Daniel, in 1888, they believed in spiritualism. In 1888, Daniel, you know the most popular thing that was to do? Get on a Ouija board.
Yeah, it was kind of a fad back in, I guess this would be Victorian times.
Yeah, there wasn't no internet. So they got on a Ouija board.
Yeah,
Or they called it spirit rappings. They would have seance parties. You know how we all get together and watch the Super Bowl on New Year's?
Oh, yeah.
Back in 1888, they would get together and ask questions of the Ouija board.
I just wanted to throw in a fuck Tom Brady real quick.
Yeah.
Deflady Brady. Shady
Okay.
Deflady Brady. Sorry, go ahead.
Tom Brady. All I heard is he inflated some superballs. That's all I can say on that matter.
He inflated some super balls. Oh my god, Todd. Oh, that was good. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't even know what I said. What did I say?
Never mind.
I'm getting there.
Okay, Crowley, Chaos Magic. Let's try to. I know that you're a little smashed, but let's try to move forward.
Superballs. Daniel, don't.
Okay, I
Get me off
won't.
track on the superballs.
Okay, super balls. Let's go.
Because I don't even know what that means, you know.
I don't know either.
I'll throw out things sometimes. My wife's like, "That's so funny. Why did you say that?" And I don't even know.
Super balls.
Superballs. Tom Brady. He's inflating some shit.
Oh my god.
Anyways. That was last year. This is this year.
This is my fault because I took things off track. So I
Why
have
do you leave Tom Brady?
I have no one to blame but myself for this Tom Brady stuff.
He has thrown me off completely.
Okay. Anyways, enough with Shady Brady. Let's talk about Aleister Crowley, the second most evil man after Tom Brady.
Well, let me just go into Crowley, based upon anything anybody could find that looks up just go type in the word Aleister Crowley on Google Chrome, and it'll tell you he was the wickedest man in the world. He screwed his maid when he was 12. His parents called him the Beast. They were Protestants, highly religious. They shaped him. They tried to shape his mind. He grew up in a highly Protestant family where they were all super religious. He took the crown, he wore the Beast title proudly. As soon as they called him the Beast, he took it on and he said, "All right, that's who I am." And then he just kept riding it. Here's my position on Crowley. So, throw everything I say in a bag, Daniel, and consider it with a grain of salt, in part. I read a lot of Crowley books. I read every Crowley book I could get my hands on. I read books about Crowley. That's how fascinated I was as a child, as a young one.
And now
Crowley,
wait, Todd. Sorry to cut you off again. I know this is probably going to be bad, but one thing that we talked about privately was I tried to read some of Crowley's books, and I just did not understand them at all.
yeah, because Crowley hid everything in a fucking veil. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If you go out, I'm going to tell every person on earth, if you go out and try to find the truth, and you try to get it from the OTO or the Golden Dawn or any of that old shit, They're slowly conditioning you. We don't have time. The chaos magicians, they decided we're not going to wait around. You need to know how this shit works so you can go do it magic on your own. Yeah, I want to talk about chaos magic.
Okay.
Crowley was a rebel. He broke the Golden Dawn apart. The Golden Dawn was made up of all the ruling elite in England in 1888, 1889.
Yeah, the Golden Dawn is one of the more famous secret societies. They came around in that time period you mentioned, and their teachings and everything are a big part of what we see today when we look into like occult stuff. So they had a major influence on things, basically.
Yep, and when you look around, when you look around, you don't realize you're looking at what the elite 100 years ago were looking at. You're looking at the world from the view they used to. They've shaped our world. They didn't go away, and they were into magic. And guess what they did? They put a circle around themselves. They practiced vanishing rituals, and they knew the elite, the Queen of England, and all the elite practiced magic, Daniel, 100 years ago. They're still practicing it today.
Which is really weird, by the way.
It's in the Snowden. You know Edward Snowden?
Of course, yeah.
Have you heard of that guy?
Oh, yes.
Well, those guys are using terminology that's based upon 100-year-old terminology. Go look that up. They're still calling themselves magicians. They're still involved in magic, Daniel.
Yeah, that is definitely some weird crap.
Go through the Snowden shit. Because, you know why, Daniel?
Why?
Because they're big and they're slow. They can't change fast. So they're still involved in all the old magic techniques. You know who the chaos magicians are? They're people that are moving faster than them, that know all their techniques, that are moving faster than them.
So
that's a weird way to put it, but
chaos magic. How did you first encounter this chaos magic thing? Was it through Crowley, or was there another source?
Yeah, I read all the Crowley stuff, and Crowley, you can only even get some of his books. You got to be a real nerd to get Crowley books. Some of them aren't even available. You got to go to used bookstores to even find the originals. And so the chaos magicians come out, Daniel. I'm going to say this before they shut us down. They come out and they said, we're not going to wait around anymore. We're not involved in the Golden Dawn. We're separating from everybody. And we're going to give everybody all the techniques. And they did, Daniel. They did. They showed you every magical technique. And I'd studied it since I was a kid, so I knew what they were saying was real. The problem with people when they try to study magic is it's all camouflaged, Daniel. They hide what they're trying to say in terms that you can't understand. Even Crowley was burying everything he said in terms that would weed out people that weren't serious.
So, is this to keep it out of the wrong hands?
Well, it was a combination. He was delivering it at the turn of the centuries. Crowley was a triple agent. He worked for the United States, England, and Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had lodges, because all this is involved around secret societies and lodges, Daniel. But chaos magicians went beyond that. They broke open all the secrets. It doesn't matter what lodge you're a member of. It's the secrets. It's the techniques. It's what you're What are you hiding? What is it that you're... I wanted to talk about secret societies.
Okay.
Let me say this.
Oh gosh darn it, I think I accidentally lost Todd. Oh, hold on, that's bad. Everybody to End of Days Radio. I do apologize to you guys. I had a little accident and I lost Todd. And I think Todd's been drinking very heavily because I'm... Oh, wait, hold on. Here we go. Here he comes. Okay. Hello, Todd?
Yes.
There you are.
I'm sorry to take so long to get back to you.
No, it's my fault. I lost the connection with you. That was my fault. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. We were talking a little bit about magic and talking a little bit about chaos magicians, and I wanted to get a little bit more specific in regards to the chaos magic. Were there certain individuals that started this whole thing up? Was it anybody in particular?
Well, let me explain how this works.
Okay.
There's a lot of magical fraternities. So if you want to go out right now and join the Golden Dawn, they're waiting for you. But there were some other groups that started in the early 80s, the Chaos Magicians. And they started with, when I first met them, Peter James Carroll. And he wrote a couple of books, Liber No and Psychonaut and Chaos Magic. And what he was, Daniel, was a offshoot of the Golden Dawn, of the magicians. Crowley was a rebel. The Golden Dawn busted into 1,000 pieces, and a couple of members went on to be their most famous ex-members, and Crowley was the most famous. As time went on, people continued to research magic and be interested in magic. And then Crowley wasn't just a curiosity. As you know, Daniel, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were both members of the Golden Dawn. Our space program's based upon people that were back in the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, that's some definite weird stuff. In fact, we could probably do a whole show on Jack Parsons and all of that. But basically, the idea is that some of these disciples of either Crowley or members of the Golden Dawn or some of the guys that came from these circles around the time period, they got together and they decided to become a circle of chaos magicians. Is that correct?
Well, they did some rituals that Crowley himself was like, don't do them. And Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard did a working. They did a ritual called the Working of the Babylon to bring about a moon child.
Now that is some creepy shit, especially considering that Crowley actually wrote a book called Moonchild where he laid this all out, right?
Yes.
But
when
Parsons wanted
heard
to make
they were
it real.
doing this, he was upset.
Yeah, he was taking Crowley's story or something that he wanted to do, and he was trying to make it real.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that a little bit, what the Moonchild is?
Well, Moonchild is the idea that you could use some magic rituals to create a combination of a hybrid human being and an alien. But you don't understand the alien concept yet. Yeah, they were trying to create a magical being.
No, Todd. I actually get it because The idea here is that alien or interdimensional being or spiritual being, we're kind of all grouping them together. Basically, what they were trying to do was bring one of these higher beings that they connected with into the body of a human, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say this. Daniel, because you and I are talking, and the idea of bringing an alien down here, to get into a human body, that sounds pretty nutty, right?
Yeah, of course.
But let's talk about it from this perspective. They were trying to tap into something that existed beyond what we know as regular reality, time and space. And that's where Lovecraft and Cthulhu kind of comes back in, because these guys were trying to get in contact with beings that existed beyond time and space.
Yeah, precisely. These are beings that are non-physical.
Yep. And Daniel, there's beings that are non-physical that you can get back in contact with. You could just do rituals to sort of bring them about. But there's other beings, Daniel, that don't exist that they were trying to bring about.
Okay, wait. Explain that again. I'm sorry, I'm a little lost there.
Well, Lovecraft talked about preternatural intelligences that exist between the spaces, between time and space, between the dimension things are trying to get out. And Crowley claimed he came into contact with them.
Now,
and translated his book, the Book of the Law.
Now, Todd, do you think there's any possibility, and this is something that I've heard, this is a theory that I've heard offered before, I've read it somewhere, do you think that Satan himself might not be a fallen angel, might actually be one of these beings that comes from in between the spaces?
Well, here's what I think about Satan.
Go ahead.
History is older than your religious books. History goes back into the mists of time, far beyond Christ and Muhammad, and these archetypes that we use as our religious figures. They've gone back, Daniel. There have been civilizations that used the exact same archetypes before we ever got here, 1,000 years ago. Jesus Christ is a figure that's been used 20 times at least by religions before that archetype. I'm not saying Jesus doesn't exist, don't hate me. I'm saying the archetype was there long before you bought into it.
Yeah, a quick fact, there was an area called Phrygia, or they were the Phrygian people, and they actually had a character in their religion just like Jesus.
If you want to learn all about the Jesus archetype, go read Fraser's The Golden Bough. That's the most famous book, Daniel.
Interesting. And also from Egypt, the concept of Horus and Osiris are very close to the whole Jesus thing, as you alluded to.
They're identical. Not close, but identical. It's the same group.
No.
Let me tell you something weird, Daniel, before you ask me another question.
Okay.
They found mummies. And in Egypt, and they had cocaine in their noses.
Oh, damn.
And that means they were already in contact with the rulers in Peru 5,000 years ago.
It's like the 80s
They were-
all over again.
Exactly. They're probably hearing Michael Jackson. Probably a version of Michael Jackson.
Sorry, I
Let
was
me
just
tell
picturing
you-
that.
Let me tell you one of the weirdest things that the Ouija board told me.
Wait, hold on a second,
You remember-
Todd. Wait, hold on a second. See, we're getting like massively off track, and we got to watch out for this. Now, we were talking about
I know.
we were talking about chaos magic, and you got started, and we went in a completely different tangent. I want to know who these people were and what were they up to. What is this all about? Explain this to me.
Chaos magicians?
Yeah, I mean, earlier privately, you told me that they had this whole plan, like they're trying to save the world. I want to hear about that before we continue.
Well, let me explain it then.
Okay.
The books that I read, everybody go get them. Peter Carroll. That's the name. Peter James Carroll, I think. I better look up the name if I don't guide you wrong. But anyways, they said that we'd spent too many years trying to learn how magic worked. We'd all studied it. We're all nerds. What was important was what worked, not what the traditions were. And chaos magicians, in the end, Daniel, they cut with the traditional magicians. Said whatever works, that's what we're going to do. And back in the 80s, Daniel, that was the first books I read, and they did change my mind. And people at the bookstores that knew what they were looking at, they were looking at them like a highly dangerous material.
Somebody in the chat, Tony in the chat, he's saying Phil Hine and James Carroll.
James Carroll. And I was going to the bookstore, and people that knew what I was buying, they were looking at it going, oh my God, this is dangerous shit.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, I have, most of my life, I've been the same way. I was raised Christian, so if I saw anything that said magic on it, anything like that, oh, that's bad, that's Satan, that's the devil, that's the dark
Exactly.
side. Yeah, that's how I've been most of my life. And it's only the past, since around I turned 30, since around that time, and doing this show, have I embraced the magic and the mystery and the esoteric and the occult. Until then, I was so brainwashed that this was Satanism, this was evil, this was bad. I couldn't go anywhere near it. And most of my life, I was in the dark.
It was the chaos magicians that released me, and I'll say it real quick before they shut me down. It was the chaos magicians that said, you don't need to follow any of them. Use what works. And that's how I would put it. They said, use what works, because we're going to go into a concentration camp, and magicians are going to be practicing magic in barbed wire fences if we don't free ourselves. Release every technique. And they released them all, Daniel.
Because these guys, they could see what was going on in Europe, and they could see the way things were headed, and they knew we were headed towards a state of totalitarian control.
A totalitarian dictatorship.
Totalitarian, thank you. Totalitarian.
And we are all drifting, thanks to the United States tax dollars, towards the biggest totalitarian dictatorship you've ever seen in your life.
And now we
don't turn this around.
And now we got guys like Tom Brady inflating superballs.
And then you got superballs and Kim Kardashian's big, beautiful brat.
Todd, you know,
I'm sorry, but
you know how to butter me up, don't you? You talk about Kim Kardashian. You just know how.
Well, those goddamn people, they know how to condition our minds with the big buttery butt. It's Thanksgiving, too.
Big
So you
buttery
got turkeys, you got butter butts, you got, what's his name's footballs being inflated, and Kim Kardashian's goddamn beautiful ass.
It's all mind control.
And then Daniel's show. But Daniel's show, he has proven, is not under the influence of these evil bastards And I don't know what is under the influence of these evil bastards, but I know these evil bastards exist. And this mind control, I wanted to tell you, Daniel, I wanted to say a thing or two about secret societies.
Go ahead.
They have existed since society existed. In the very earliest days, Daniel, National Geographic is taking pictures of tribes right now that never seen another human being, and they are practicing the same techniques on their tribe as our society is practicing on its individual citizens.
Now, Todd, you're familiar with Bohemian Grove, right?
Yeah, Alex Jones snuck into Bohemian Grove, supposedly.
Now,
right.
One thing that I read is most of the time when these guys are at Bohemian Grove, they're actually running around dressed like women doing gay shit with each other.
And that's pretty wild. But, why would they... Let me ask you this, Daniel.
Go ahead.
Why would they do that?
That's really puzzling to me. I've heard that...
No, but I would just say, don't try to analyze it. Don't try to give me a historical perspective. Just in your mind, if I asked you that question, why would they make their members do that?
A code of silence.
So they could get something on them.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I agree.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about secret societies, and here's what they don't want me to say.
Go ahead.
They've been around since the beginning of time. They all have the exact same... They're different in every society, but they have the exact same rules of conduct. And guess what they're trying to control? They make the young go out, and while they can screw the younger females, the elder males, make the young go out so they can screw the elder females. But they have something specific, and they want to protect the elder class. It's the beginning of time. They've been set up to make sure that the old ones never have to work again. And they're completely set up, Daniel. Controlled. The whole thing's controlled.
Yeah,
and
it's really some interesting stuff. One thing that I have always found interesting was the Knights Templar, because they say that the Freemasons actually came from those guys, and they were a big secret society.
You know the weirdest story about the Knights Templars, because they're so popular? The weirdest story is how they met the assassins in the 1100s.
Oh, Todd, I have a book on that. Yeah, I have a book about what you're talking about, but I haven't read it. But I kind of know what you're talking about. Basically what happened was, because they were both in the Middle East at the same time, they met each other and they put their heads together.
Yes. And there's theories today that we're all combined. You don't think that we just met the Middle East yesterday?
Well, Todd, this is important. Sorry to cut you off, but this is important because so many people out there are racist as hell against Muslims nowadays, and it's ironic because our own secret societies in our Western culture, they brought their beliefs over here, and the Muslim beliefs they've influenced our culture more than most people realize. Is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
And here's what I would say: don't judge one person on who they are as a race. Judge them on who they are as an individual.
Sure. Go ahead.
I love everyone. I judge everyone, Daniel, on an individual basis. I'm a libertarian. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said that?
Yes, I did.
You also said that you're a capitalist.
Let me throw in a couple other things.
You're a libertarian, You're a libertarian, capitalist, chaos magician.
Yeah, let me throw another couple things in real quick, Daniel, just real quick. I'm an underground artist. I'm published locally in Salt Lake. I'm not just somebody flying out of the blue. And that doesn't mean anything either. I've been an activist for a long time. That's why I would say that. I'm an underground artist that saw this a long time ago. I got friends. I don't get on the radio ever.
Wait, Todd, real quick. We can't talk about any of this, but there was a period where you had to kind of go into hiding and you couldn't talk about any of this. So there was a long stretch of time. Yep. Yeah. So you've been kind of, yeah. So basically for our audience, Todd's been laying kind of low and he's just now coming out and speaking publicly again. And we are very thankful that he's doing this.
And it was End of Days Radio that did this. I heard a couple guys that were searching for the truth. I searched for it long ago. I met some people, Daniel, that were looking for it too. I've always been interested in it. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just telling you a story. I love your show.
Yeah, I know, Todd. That's why you're here, because you do have a unique perspective, and I think it's a good way for people to get what they have to say out there. I want to make this show more of a platform for anybody that has any sort of vital information. We don't want to hear the same junk over and over again. I want to hear some new stuff. So that's why we're branching out and we're bringing people like yourself on here.
Well, it's funny. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
The only reason I called was because I could tell you were in a search for the truth. I'm kind of an old school search for the truth, right?
Uh-huh.
You could go into Jordan Maxwell and Freeman Fly, and do you know who you're not doing, Daniel?
What's that?
Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero.
Yeah, I'm aware of Clyde Lewis. I've never listened to his show. There's just so much out there. There's so many podcasts that I just haven't found my way to that one yet. I've heard most of the big ones out there, I think. Like, I've listened to Red Ice Radio. I've listened to John B. Wells is one of my favorites, as well as there's some from the UK that I really like. There's quite a few out there.
Fireside Chat.
Yeah, I listened to that one. That's one of my favorites, actually. I love that show.
The one you were going to have on, Into the Fray.
Yeah, that one too. That's yeah, I'm aware of that one.
Anyways, these are just podcasts. People that are podcasting.
Well, it's kind of all we got nowadays.
No, I love your show so much. Thank you, Daniel, for allowing me to come on and talk about this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is what we're here to do. And if there's anybody else out there that has a unique story or something they want to share, sure, come on here and we'll see what you've got to say. We're not going to spend too much time on something if it seems frivolous or if it seems like it's not legit. But Todd, I think that what you have to offer here is very legitimate, and I, of course, enjoy talking about secret societies and magic and things like that. And like I said on previous shows, we're going to get more into that. We're going to go, we kind of covered magic a little bit before, but it's going to become one of the more major aspects of this show, because I think that you're onto something there. When you talk about the chaos magicians and making these secrets available, what's so weird is I was thinking that needed to happen even before you told me this stuff. So it's so weird and coincidental that you told me about this plan that these guys had, like when I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Yes. My thing was I spent a lot of time looking into the matter. It works. There's tricks. They learned them. You know how we talked about the secret societies?
Yeah.
They are institutionalized everywhere now, Daniel. They're all around us.
Yeah, see, now, this is my problem. Sorry to cut you off, but this is my problem because these elitists, they are hoarding this knowledge for themselves, and they have no right to do that. It's not theirs. It does not belong to them. It never belonged to them. It is all of ours. It's our birthright.
Yeah. They tried to hide them. They're trying to hide them. Let me tell you something about the elite. They're not passionate because they have everything, Daniel. They don't have money, or they have money. They have resources. They could give a shit less. Magic isn't something that you inherit, Daniel. It's something that you're into because you're drawn to it. You get that?
Yeah, that does make sense. It's like I was saying with my experience before I got into this stuff. If somebody told me about magic, I would say, "Get away from me! You're a weirdo. You're just trying to get attention. You're trying to look smarter than everybody else. You're being strange." I never entertained it at all. But that's not the reality.
Yeah.
The reality is that this stuff is very real. It's more real than a lot of other things you see out there.
Oh, yeah. And there's a couple of tricks that you could use to prove it to yourself. And they're real simple, ranging from the simple to the complex. But you can prove it to yourself if you just do a couple of techniques. What they don't want you to know is that you're your own person and you can do what you want with yourself. You're not subject to their going to hell matrix. If you decide to free your mind, you're not really going to go to hell, but if you believe that, you can go to hell.
Now, Todd, that's a good point. Let me cut you off for a second. So somebody said in the chat, they said, if everyone had this knowledge, the stupid or less intelligent people would abuse the knowledge. But my response to that would be, that's what's happening. The stupid people are in control. These guys aren't smart. They're assholes.
Well, that's the reason the world's going to burn, is there'll be a bunch of dummies at the end going, burn it all. They don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they aren't smart, but there's a difference between being smart, like making money, and being smart, like smart spiritually.
Well, what it is there's room for everybody in that matrix. Oh God, Daniel, we're in the same boat that the election was in. You can't even explain it. Everybody is free to do as they will, and I hope everybody makes the right choice.
Yeah, we all have our own freedom. It's like Crowley said, he said, do what thou wilt, and that we can all do whatever we want to do while not messing with each other. We don't have to step on each other in order to get anywhere, basically.
Well, let me put it to you this way. You step within 18 inches of my nose, I'm going to get pissed. There's this free space. Don't get in front of my free space. You know what I mean? If I invite you in...
Not when you're drinking. Not when you're drinking, Todd. I'm not going to get that close to you when you're pounding
when I'm drinking with whiskey or anything like that.
Yeah, you might pull a shotgun on me or something. I don't... You get wild when you drink.
My point is, Daniel, is everybody should be given at least 18 inches of free space. Nobody get between that. I mean, that's just kind of a natural. If somebody gets in your face, you're going to get pissed. I mean, 18 inches.
Yeah, but see,
you're going to get pissed.
The situation we live in with this society, we live in a hierarchy. That's the truth. We are all part of a hierarchy.
We are, and there's a pecking order. Most people don't know that. But if you don't realize it or not, there's people above you, and it's all been decided before you got here.
Yeah, I mean, when we're kids, they say, oh, you're special, you can achieve anything, follow your dreams. But the reality is, you might try to follow your dreams, but there's going to be a lot of people that are trying to stop that from happening because they don't want you to come take what they've got.
Well, there's that, and then they just haven't been introduced to the idea of contributing to a common goal for the good of all. You know, it's getting so convoluted now that we can't even get together. We can't even get together on the same page. The secret societies, I don't even know who's doing this. The people that want chaos, they're moving behind the scenes to make sure we never get together.
Now, Todd, while I still have you here, we are running a little bit low on time, but I did want to get a couple of your thoughts on a few topics. I want to ask you about aliens. What are your thoughts on aliens? Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe that they're demons? What do you think of aliens?
Well, let me tell you about aliens. My grandma told me a story about a kid that moved in down the street, and he didn't have a belly button. He was like this kid. The family moved out.
No belly button. That would look weird.
Yeah, no belly button. Yeah, they didn't know what happened to him. It's really weird. But on aliens, 5,000 years ago, all our religious books said the same things. People came here from outer space. They showed man knowledge, and then they left, and then they turned over the world to some secret priests. The priests continued the knowledge, and the aliens receded into the background. The weirdest shit I ever read on aliens, Daniel, was Zachariah Sitchin's book, Forbidden Realms. And it was based upon the Spanish conquistadors. They came to America, they raped it, they raided it, and they kept meticulous records of how much gold they took out of every city, Daniel. Did you know that?
Not that specifically, no.
Yeah, the Spaniards kept meticulous records of what statues and how much gold and how much it weighed, and they sent it back to Spain as they were raping the Americans.
One thing I do know, though, is like when we watch the movies and read the history books, they make it seem like the conquistadors, they came here and they were expecting to find gold. They didn't really find it, but that's not really true. They actually did find quite a bit of gold, but they just couldn't figure out where the hell it came from. Something like that.
There was so much gold, and they kept looking, and they were finding so much, Daniel, they were getting excited. I'm not shitting you. They went from every village to every village, and they were finding gold statues. They were finding gold temples, finding piles of gold, and they were literally torturing the people to find out where the gold was coming from. And they ran out in the end of places to find the gold. The Spanish did, the conquistadors. They never did find the gold, but they kept searching.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's another book by Zachariah Sitchin. I think it's called The Lost World, and it goes into all of that. It talks about how there was this mining operation at the same time that this stuff was happening over in Sumerian Egypt and all that, in South America and Central America, Mexico, that area. They had quite a bit going on. They had the same stuff going on. They had the metallurgy and the ships that could go across the ocean. They had some very advanced technology, and that's possibly the Atlantean civilization.
No, what it was, Daniel, was the Spanish conquistadors found the evidence that there was ancient mining operations that left big holes in the ground. The mining operations were so big, Daniel, they don't understand them.
Yeah,
they dug holes.
Yeah, that's true.
They dug holes so deep.
And there's also places where there's temples, and the like many other places in the world, once again, the stone blocks are much too big to have been moved by people, even if they had some crude machinery. It's almost impossible. And the fact that they got these stones to fit together so perfectly, something that we can't even do with lasers today.
Yep. And all that is just evidence that something was going on that we can't explain right now. And it's a combination of shit that fits together that presents a picture of the ancient past that says, I don't know what really went on there.
Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't really make much sense. And, we can say, okay, maybe they had technology back then, or maybe it was aliens. But the bottom line is that it's not how they told us. It's the history that they've taught us is an outright lie.
Yep, and if there's one thing I can say before I'm done with our conversation, it's everybody runs their lives. Escape with your own mind, because these people have sought out to conquer all of us. So get away. And there's tricks and there's techniques that you can use to defend yourself against them. And
wait, like what? Are you going to tell our listeners what they can do?
I would love to.
Yeah, let's hear this.
The first thing you do in magic is you get a circle around yourself. Have you ever heard of the LBRP? The
Lesser Banishment Ritual of the Pentagram.
Yes. That's just what the magicians use to describe of putting a magical circle around yourself. It can be a circle, or it can be a cone.
I actually do use that one, Todd. That's how I keep the aliens from raping me.
Well, I know, and you told me about the archangels. I'm kind of anti-religious, so when you tell me about the archangels, I'm kind of like, oh, God, I don't know about the angels. God, I don't know if angels
wait, hold on a second, Todd. So you believe in all of this insane shit, but you can't believe that there's archangels? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
Oh, no, because, archangels and angels and our goddamn angels. But angels.
I mean, come on. I mean, if we have aliens, if we have demons, if we have all these spiritual creatures from the world of H.P. Lovecraft, surely there must be some good guys out there or some force keeping order in this universe.
Well, let me explain. I'm an atheist. When we die, it's over. You're done. None of this exists outside of, your pleasant dreamings.
Wait, now, okay, see, once again, that conflicts, because if you believe that consciousness permeates everything, then why would it stop when we die? Of course it's going to go on, because everything is made of the same consciousness we are.
Well, let me explain. Aleister Crowley, way back when I was a little kid, he said, go into every form of consciousness. Try to understand every concept. Let's say you're religious. Then go deeply into your religious believings, and then go into the opposite of that. Just ponder it. Doesn't mean you believe it.
Yeah,
but you'll start
to
find.
Yeah, I don't think that you have to be religious, however, to believe in angels or archangels. I mean, yes, these are characters from religious stories, and they do come from a religion. But because you believe in one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like this Bible Belt Christian that thinks that the earth is 6,000 years old, et cetera, et cetera. In my model of the universe, there are many dimensions and many levels. Like if you look at the tree from Kabbalah, that's what it all represents. It's all the different realms and all the different levels of reality.
Yes.
But that's the truth,
right.
though, isn't it? That's the ultimate truth. That's
Well, it's like this. Believe what you want. Go ahead and fold yourself into a ball and die if that's what you want to believe. Maybe you've got some relatives, that you care about pulling for you from beyond. Maybe somebody gives a shit about what you're doing right now. Hopefully that's me and my family and you and your fans. But it's all relative, and like you said, Daniel, it's kind of, I believe in dimensions. I'm a magician. Crowley taught me to believe. Crowley was the one first taught me to go into everything, go into the opposites. It doesn't mean you have to believe it. Consider the opposite of what you believe. Just for a second. Go ahead and look at it.
Sure.
See what happens.
Yeah, I can see like how that might be valuable, but it's been my experience that usually the truth is somewhere in the middle.
The truth is out there, and there is a truth. I'm living example of the truth. You're living example of the truth. What is the truth? What's important? That's the question, right, Daniel, at the end?
Yeah.
What's important?
Exactly.
Is it aliens? Is it the fucking hiding the moon? Is it hiding the magic? Is it hiding the techniques that we can all use to survive? What's important? And I've spent my life kind of trying to figure out what works, and what's real.
Well, there are a lot of people out there, even in the occult world, and people that we've had on this show that their whole take on it, it's all in the mind. If you see an alien or a demon or an angel, well, that's coming from inside of you.
Magicians tell it like this. It's part inside, part outside. It's real and it isn't. It's as real as it, if it starts to influence your behavior, that's pretty real.
Definitely.
If you've called, I want to tell a couple of magic tricks.
Go ahead.
Magicians realize that there are gates that keep people from being able to do the magic tricks. So they find tricks to get around the gates. And they use techniques that put you in alternate states of consciousness that allow you to get beyond the gates. There's tricks. Most people, Daniel, have never thought about casting a spell on themselves.
Okay, explain that.
Let's say there's something you don't like about yourself. In the past, let's say you're a crippled individual. According to chaos magic, you can cast a spell on yourself in the past and change who you were that will affect the present.
Okay.
They call it retroactive enchantment. That means you cast a spell in the past in your own mind on yourself.
So what you're saying is, just to kind of reiterate for listeners, that before you can make anything happen, first thing you need to do is take away your mental barriers that are affecting your belief system and keeping you from seeing your spell or your working through.
Kind of.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I totally understand that. A lot of our listeners aren't going to get that, but I can say that I do.
And so, you know, when you think that I'm the devil because I'm talking about just casting a spell, it's not like that. I'm just talking about. Let me tell you what the secret societies learned. If they can get you to do an initiation or a ritual that freaks you out, then your consciousness goes into hyper overdrive and you go on high alert, and then you're more aware. And then the message is planted deeper, and then it has a higher effect.
Okay, that's far out, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, do some psychoactive drugs. Every secret society on the face of the earth has used drugs, and our society is no exception. They know what drugs do to you, and they're using them on you already. So you might as well realize that you can do that to yourself without drugs if you decide to put your own message inside yourself.
So you're
program yourself.
You're saying, yeah. So you're saying that that I can program myself to make myself more effective in some way, basically.
Well, realize they're working against you, so you might as well use their same technique and get ahead of them 3 times faster.
And hold on, Todd. So this is going to confuse a lot of people because we're talking like 2 people that are, you know, semi-initiated or however you want to explain it. But what you're alluding to is that these elitists, these elite that are into the occult, that are into the ritual and ceremonial magic, what they're doing is they're using these techniques to alter our reality. So even if you don't know what magic is, or if you don't use it, you are still being affected by the magic workings of these rich elitists.
Yep, they're using them. And you might as well use them too.
That makes perfect sense.
So there's some tricks. Get beyond your consciousness. How do you get beyond your consciousness? Trick yourself. Cast a spell on yourself. You never thought about that. Cast a spell on yourself.
Cool. Yeah, so everybody out there,
awesome.
all of you guys, cast spells on yourself. All of you. That's your homework.
Yeah.
Cast a spell on yourself.
Get ahead of them. There's some other shit. They are using programming. The future moves on because they're telling you where it's going to go. Program your own future.
Yeah, fuck them.
You can see, exactly, you can see where they want you to go. Move it another notch off base.
Fuck the elite. Fuck the Illuminati. Fuck.
And Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton. Now, I would not fuck her with a 10-inch pole.
I know, she's probably going to come and kill me. But
she's not touching my superballs.
Superballs. No, Daniel, thank you for having me. And I hope I wasn't too far off base. I wanted to just divulge everything.
We'll do it again, Todd. We'll do it again, but next time more caffeine and less alcohol.
Was I too alcohol?
No, I think we made it through okay, but I talked to you a few times when you were a little bit more clear-headed, and I really like that, Todd, because that's the best and smartest Todd, so I'd hope that we can
Well,
do this again.
well, I gotta say, I was a little nervous. I was very excited about the opportunity just to talk to you, Daniel. I love you guys so much. I love your show. I love the search for the truth and the opportunity just to talk to you. There's so much I wanted to tell you. I only got to just a portion of it, and I'm sorry if I let anybody down because I wanted to just get right to the root of the heart of the evil, of the conspiracy, of
Sure,
the
and
horrible thing.
And Todd, you do have fans out there, and there are people such as Tony and others that have told me that they're big fans of yours. They want to hear more of what you have to say, and that definitely contributed to my decision to bring you on here. There's definitely been a demand.
Well, and I don't even know, you know me, Daniel, I hate technology. Remember me telling you about how I hate technology?
Sure, that's why I'm here though, so that I can assist people like yourself that can't necessarily, get on and do a podcast on their own. You can come on this show and use my technology and my know-how to get the message out there.
But Daniel, I don't want to do a podcast, and I don't want to learn because I don't know why, but
because the machines are evil.
The machine is going to come and get us all.
But Todd, we're running.
Machine.
We're running out of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and let you get on the soapbox just a little bit. If you want to plug anything, or if you just want to talk a little bit and say whatever you want to say, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I love Daniel, and I love End of Days Radio. I mean, I just start with that, and I'm an old fan. I love Michael. I just got attracted to these guys because they're on a search for the truth, and they're kind of having fun, and that's why I'm with them. I just want to say I love this show, and if there's anything you need, please contact me. I'm not selling anything. I'm not Alex Jones. I just love your show.
Okay, awesome. And if I guess you're not on the internet, so there's nothing to plug. But Todd,
there's no one to find. There's no one. Here's what I would say. I'm no one.
Okay, that's a good label. Todd, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Like I said, this is something that other people have requested. I've been thinking about doing for a while. Definitely some good information here. I hope those tips and those couple of magical workings that you gave people out there, it'll be a little bit to open up a few minds out there and get people started. And I completely agree with most of the things that you said. Disagreed on the angel thing, but other than that, I'm totally with you. And thanks for coming on End of Days Radio, and we'll have to do this again.
Well, you're welcome, Daniel. And I hope I didn't let you down.
No, it went well. We got disconnected a couple times, but no big deal there. We definitely got that information out there. Would I like you to be just a little more sober in the future? Like if we do this again? Yeah, of course. I'd love a sharper Todd that's more, on his game, but it definitely went well. And I thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Have a good night, Todd.
You too, my man.
And there you have it, the infamous Todd Miller, who was kind enough to come on our program and talk about all sorts of things, which was so much fun. I did plan on going a little bit longer, but I am so tired. I don't know why. That was such an intense conversation, and I already have to urinate again. It's this darn coffee. So I'm probably I am just gonna wrap things up. We've been on since 7:30, so it's been a good 3.5 hours, which I think is more than enough time for any podcast or show. I know we went, 4 hours last week, and I was only supposed to do 45 to 90 minutes. This is crazy. But in any case, I'll save these things, these notes that I took for next week's show. I did want to talk about the Brady Bunch and sitcoms and things like that, but we can hold off on that. There's plenty of time. And other than that, I just wanted to say thanks once again to everybody that's sticking with this program, giving it a chance to succeed. I thank you so much. I'm trying to get better and better each time. I know that there's still a lot of room for improvement, and I do want to improve. I have no illusions about being perfect on the radio or anything like that. So always looking to get a little better and better. I hope that you guys see that as time goes by, and I hope you stick with this program a little bit longer. If you want to, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. That's @NinjaShoes. You can add me on Skype. That's NinjaShoes777. Very useful if you want to call into the program sometime or you just want to contact me. Go to the website, endofdaysradio.com. We are live here every Saturday night at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. We will always be live here every Saturday night. That's not going to ever change. And other than that, if you want to donate to the show, just go to endofdaysradio.com, click donate, help keep the server up, help keep the lights on. If you don't want to donate, that's perfectly fine. I don't need your damn money. No, I'm just kidding. It does help when you guys donate, but you don't have to. Just listen to the show. I very much appreciate you just listening, so I absolutely love that, and please keep listening. If you have a guest suggestion for the show, go to endofdaysradio.com once again and click on Contact Us, and you can either ask to come on the show or suggest somebody that you think should come on. As far as the forum goes, I will be reopening the forum soon. I didn't want to have the forum open when the split was happening because I didn't want a bunch of drama and bullshit like that. But I will be reopening the forum soon, so stay tuned for that. Get that community up and running again. And other than that, we got some big things ahead. I got some very interesting guests booked. I'm not going to say who those people are for obvious reasons, but they will be coming on soon. And other than that, once again, thank you so much. This show would not exist without the listeners, without the fans. And this show is going to be more and more about the fans as time goes on. So thanks, everybody, and have a very good rest of your Saturday night. And I will see you next week. Oh, yeah. Let's hear that intro from the Black Dogs of London. And it's not playing. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Yep, I'm still getting used to this technical stuff, so here we go.
Winter's coming.
The king has returned from the broken ruins of Babylon. This is the end of days.